I know you thought you were done with us last year when we finished the municipal elections, but unfortunately, in the way that the election cycles work, there is another election this year for an office that I and actually most local elected officials, be they aldermen or sometimes state senators, state reps, hold, which is a party position called a committeeman. In Chicago, we tend only to think about Democratic committeemen because, honestly, there's not a great presence of a Republican Party here, but technically each ward also has or should have a Republican committeeman as well. But in Chicago, being primarily a Democratic town, most of the focus goes to the Democratic committeeman. In the old days, this was really the seat of power for local government. They used to call them ward bosses. That was a time when there was huge amounts of patronage. That was pre-Shackman decision, where a person's job related more to how they did in their precinct in terms of representing the Democratic Party than it did in how they performed their job at work. Obviously, those days are long gone, but the Democratic committeeman function that is now performed is more aligned with what it was intended to be. And that's the individual who gathers Democrats in the geographic area known as a ward or a township to work for Democratic candidates, to come together to determine who should be slated as Democratic candidates, to make sure that the polls are open, to make sure that the judges are there, to make sure that election day goes as smoothly as possible. It's changed over time. Early voting makes it less important to man the local polls, but nonetheless, that's where still the majority of people come to vote. But more importantly, it allows the Democratic committeemen, both in the city and in the townships in the county, and then state central committeemen, which are the state party. The role really is to find qualified candidates to run for office to represent our communities. And it has allowed me over time to really nominate and get behind some significantly great people who have really affected the government in Illinois and in Chicago. We have in our neighborhood a great luxury that we have several people that represent us in other elected bodies that Democrats in the city and in our community have gotten together and gotten behind and helped put them in office, and they've done a tremendous job for us. Our state rep, Greg Harris, he's in leadership in the House, a tremendous advocate for people, tremendous advocate for equal rights, a really thoughtful individual who started his public career working in an alderman's office on the lakefront, really got to know people's needs and people's wants and requirements at a city level, at the level that's closest to the people, and that's working in an office that receives all those first calls for when things go wrong in a neighborhood. And he's taken what he learned there and taken it to the state, and he really has never forgotten that really what people want is they want to see government work for them in their homes. They want to see it work for them in their communities. They want to see it work for them in their city. And Greg's done a great job at that. Heather Staines, whose financial acumen has really put her in the forefront in the state Senate, has done a tremendous job of understanding state budgets, of understanding the way state budgets can help disaffected and people in need, and still serve the entire state in terms of making sure that we get things done. You might say, oh, this is, what does this difference does this make? The impasse that we've had at the state level has been tremendous, and it's been tragic. But factually speaking, it takes voices like Heather Staines, it takes voices like Greg Harris to continue to push, to continue to try and cajole and get their leadership of their party and get the governor's office to try and get together and enact some legislation and enact a budget that will put Illinois back on track. And if you listen to the ideas that Heather has and the ideas that Greg have, you'll see that ultimately what comes out of the state compromise when it comes will be very much aligned with what their thought process is today. We're tremendously fortunate to have those folks working for us. At the county, we've got Bridget Gaynor. Anyone who looks and watches county government, although the landscape sometimes gets eaten up by the bigger things that are happening out there, the fights between Tony Preckwinkle and other county office holders and things like that. But county government functions every day through the county commissioners, and we have one of the best. Bridget Gaynor is one of the most thoughtful, really a very progressive, in a positive way, individual who tries every day to make sure that we in our community get the best of what county government offers. And whether it's outreach for tax issues, whether it's outreach for people who need to ensure that they're paying the lowest taxes they can, whether it's just trying to find ways to ensure that health care is available to those who are in need, and mental health care continues to be available. She's really been very, very dynamic in terms of trying to get that done. And these individuals are all folks that we as Democratic Committeemen in our geographic area have supported. So a Democratic Committeeman is not just serving their community in that office by themselves. The Democratic Committeemen come together in geographic areas, whether it's a county commissioner, which is several wards and parts of townships, whether it's a state senator, which is several wards and sometimes parts of townships, or whether it's a state rep, which is several wards and parts of townships. We come together, we put our votes that we bring as a community, and we try and find the best qualified candidates. And then if we can't agree, then you have an opportunity to clear it up in the most democratic way possible, and that's at a primary. What's approaching now is the Democratic primary and the Republican primary, but for purposes of our discussion, let's focus on the Democrats. The Democratic primary, which comes up in March, will determine some very important things. It will determine who the Illinois delegation goes for President of the United States. It will determine who the Democrats will support for the U.S. Senate, a very important seat that's been held recently by Senator Mark Kirk. There's some great candidates that are running in that race. And Tammy Duckworth is one who is running against, for the privilege to run against Mark Kirk. She is a veteran of the wars in the Middle East. She was a lifer in the Army before she was wounded. She lost her legs in an explosion and decided to carry her public service into government. And she is a well-known congressman who has been in the forefront of fighting for veterans issues, but now she's trying to step up her ability to play a role in helping to formulate our nation's policies, and is a constant reminder to people in the House, and will be a reminder to people in the Senate, that when you send people to war, there are repercussions. And if you think back, in the House and in the Senate over all of the last century, we've been fortunate to have individuals who served in wars and had the visible scars of serving in those wars to temper the debate and the discussion. Hey, fellas. So before we had the interruption by our dogs Wrigley and Roxy here, we were talking a little bit about how important it is to be able to nominate and support people that can have an impact for our communities at all level of government, and that the role that the committeeman plays in that support and in trying to get them elected. And that support is material as well as just cheering them on. You know, we raise money, we print flyers, we pass out flyers, we mail things. It's a very active way in which to try and elect Democrats to office. And this year, as we do every 4 years, there is an election for Democratic Committeeman. And the Democratic Committeeman in our ward traditionally is someone who has been involved in government, who has had the opportunity to make alliances and sometimes friendships with others to the benefit of our neighborhood. And so I'm looking for your support to help me continue in this role. we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We've got a neighborhood that is the safest in the city, but yet every day, every other day, we see more and more signs that that the city as a whole is going through what cities across the country are going through: unwarranted gun violence, the use of weapons just for grins. You know, people firing off weapons. The police going to scenes, finding no damage, finding no one hurt, fortunately, but it's almost an act of domestic terrorism. It's designed by individuals to make people unhappy, unsteady, and afraid in their own homes. And so we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. But I think that if we continue to work together, we'll continue to be able to be the safest neighborhood in the city. And it doesn't happen by accident. You know, the idea that that we are the safest neighborhood in the city is in part due because of some of those things, like that neighborhood justice office that we have with the state's attorney. It's due to the fact that we support the CAPS program. And the CAPS program, actually, when it started, one of the districts that serves our ward was one of the first CAPS district. It was a pilot program. It was an experiment. And they had a district on the south side and a district on the north side that included significant parts of our ward. We have been in the forefront of trying to maintain and preserve this neighborhood as one of the safest and best in the entire city of Chicago. And we look forward to continuing to be able to do that. And look forward to having a dog that doesn't jump on my lap every time he comes in the house. But the idea is really kind of simple. If you enjoy where you live now, if you appreciate the fact that we are one of the best neighborhoods in the city, if you understand that takes work, then you'll understand the nexus between the Democratic Committeeman and being the alderman of the 40th Ward. The two work well together to basically allow me to go seamlessly from the political world, which is the Democratic side of things, into the governmental world, which is the aldermanic side of things. The political and the aldermanic oftentimes are seamless lines, and being able to affect and work in both is a tremendous advantage for our community. And it's a tremendous advantage for the office holder, because in the past, as I say, the committeeman used to be an old ward boss, they used to call them. But then the person who was voting, the representative, the state senator, the alderman, they all danced to the tune of someone who basically just looked at politics as the ultimate guiding light. And that's not the way it works today. At least that's not the way it should work today. The ultimate guiding light is how government can affect us in a positive way, and how we can continue to work in the political arena to ensure that that happens.